Hey guys, welcome back to the Out Jeeping YouTube channel. My name is Austin, and in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to replace front brake calipers on your 99 Jeep Cherokee XJ. Now this is going to be a similar process to the Jeep Grand Cherokee as well as the Jeep TJ in the 90s, early 2000s time period. So overall, this is going to be a fairly simple process, and I'm going to show you guys how to do the whole job from start to finish. So without further ado, let's get started and see what we're working with. Alright, so let's first take a look at what we're all going to be replacing today. So obviously we got brand new calipers that are right here, pretty much just remanufactured, which they are pretty much brand new. They have all new seals in there. They got your brand new piston, they got your brand new dust boot, and they got your inner piston seal in there as well. Along with that, they have brand new hardware. You got your banjo bolt, you got your bleeder screw, you got your slide pins, and they're already greased up. You got brand new boots and everything like that. And for this whole entire thing, it's only going to cost you around 30 bucks. This was like 31 bucks at my local O'Reilly. Only thing I got to do is just return the cores, and it's only 31 bucks. And if you compare that with Rock Auto, for the cheapest calipers, it's right at 31 bucks as well. If you order through Rock Auto, you're going to have to send them back and pay for shipping and returning those cores. So it just makes sense for calipers to actually just go to your local auto parts stores. Now the reason why I'm going to be replacing them today is because my Jeep has well over 300,000 miles, and I'm pretty sure that the calipers are original. Now there is no major issues with them right now, but it's always good as preventative maintenance to just kind of freshen things up a little bit, meaning that it's 23 years old, and I still do go in there and grease them every now and then, but I've noticed last time I was in there, I had a cracked boot. Now I could easily replace new boots and everything, get it up and going, but oftentimes on older calipers, you might have seized pistons, especially if you're just doing a pad change and then retract that piston. Sometimes that just triggers it, and then you'll have a stuck brake caliper after that. So if you're doing pads and stuff and your vehicle's old, might as well replace the calipers while you're at it as well. Now with that, I'm going to be replacing it with new ceramic brake pads. The ones that are on it are about half-life, but for only 20 something bucks you can get nice decent power stop ceramic brake pads from Rock Auto, so it's definitely a good deal there. I've ran these on multiple vehicles without any issues. Now another thing I'm going to be replacing today, but I'm not going to go too in depth because I already have a video covering it, is putting on extended brake lines, since my Jeep does have a 3-inch suspension lift and I still have the original soft line hoses going to the caliper on there. Now what I'm running as far as extended brake lines, this is probably the most cost-effective way you can do it for having extended brake lines. I'm actually using a 90s Chevy pickup truck front brake lines, and they only run about 9 bucks a piece, which is fairly cheap compared to Jeep Cherokee extended brake lines, which can be from 40 bucks a piece upwards. So this just makes sense here. There's going to be a little bit tweaking that we have to do, but other than that, we should make it work. And I got a video in depth on going over that, so I won't cover it today, but I'll get them installed off camera. Now you may be noticing I'm missing one thing, that is rotors. I'm not going to be replacing rotors today. The ones on it have been replaced before and they're still in good condition. The pads aren't completely worn down on it, so it's not metal on metal, and I don't notice any warping in the rotors as I'm braking, so that's up to you if you want to replace them. In today's video, I'm not going to be replacing that. Now the biggest thing that a lot of people worry about is once you take off the caliper, you're going to have to bleed the whole system, and that's not always true. If you do one at a time, you can get away with just having to bleed the brakes in that one corner that you're doing, and that's what we're going to do today. It's going to help if you have one person just to kind of help you just press the brake and everything like that, but it's a fairly simple process on bleeding brakes, so I'll show you guys that as well. Now depending on the brake calipers that you purchased, one thing you might consider you want to do is actually paint the calipers. I was anticipating that these ones needed some paint, since the ones I got from O'Reilly's years in the past just come bare metal, and then after a few months you'll notice they start rusting right away. But these ones actually came already painted, so I'm not going to worry too much on it at all. So these are ready to be installed right onto the Jeep. Now another thing you'll need for this brake job is obviously some brake fluid, since we're going to be losing a little bit when we replace those calipers. So you're going to want to get you what your vehicle recommends. On this Jeep Cherokee, it recommends .3, so that's what we got here. Then also you're going to want to get some brake parts lubricant, and sometimes with your brake pads they come with a little packet of synthetic high temp grease. That should work just fine. Alright, so now that we went over all the components that we're going to be replacing today, let's head over to the Jeep and see what we're working with. We'll pull off the tire and wheel, and we'll do one side at a time on replacing that brake caliper. Alright, so we're going to start on the driver's side first, so we'll get it jacked up in the air in this corner and take the wheel off. Alright, so now looking into the wheel well right here, the process we're going to do to replace this caliper is first thing we're going to do is pinch off our soft line right here. This is going to prevent us from losing too much brake fluid, so that way our master cylinder doesn't go dry at all. And to do that, I'm simply just going to take a vice grips and pinch off this line right here. Don't want to go too tight where we're damaging it, but just so it closes that up. Just like so. Now the next thing we're going to do is crack free our banjo bolt right here, which is bolting on our brake line to our brake caliper right here. Now once that gets free, we're going to loosen up our 2 guide pin bolts right here, and our caliper should pop off. So this banjo bolt back here is going to be a 9/16. And make sure you have a catch pan underneath, because you're going to lose a little bit of brake fluid. And our caliper is going to kind of drain out a little bit, as you see. Now these are going to be 2 13mm bolts on this side. I'm going to take these off, and everything on here is coming off nicely, because I usually like to go through my brakes once a year, kind of grease up the guide pins and everything like that, so the brakes are working nice and functionally. And once we take this caliper off, I'm just going to tip it to the side and drain out any extra brake fluid that's stuck inside the caliper. I'll pry this away from the rotor. Tip this down. So the next thing I'm going to do before I put on our new caliper and brake pads is, if you got a new rotor, now's the time to replace it with the new one. I'm going to take the old one off anyway, because I want to clean up the surfaces right here on the top and bottom where our brake pads are going to be riding on, so that way it gets nice and clean. That way your brake pads are moving nice and freely as you press the brake and release. So I got existing brake dust, some grease, some anti-seize all on here. It's all caked in pretty good. So I'm going to take some brake cleaner and a toothbrush and just kind of clean these up. Alright, so with that all cleaned up, you can kind of see on our knuckles here that we have something going on with wear from existing brake pads on our knuckle. And this is actually a very common issue, especially on high mileage Jeeps, where you're going to get this wear mark right on here on the top and bottom. Now for mine over here, it's only on the inside pad that was causing this. It's basically just a little groove spot where our pad was just kind of resting in there. Today we're actually going to go over on how to fix that, and if you got a welder, it's going to be your lucky day, because we're going to fix that by just welding in some filler and grinding it down nice and flush, so that way our pad doesn't get stuck in there and wear our pads out a little bit funny. So you might be wondering, this is cast metal right here, and a lot of people have their opinions on welding cast metal, that you should preheat it and everything like that. We're not going to do any of that today, because honestly this is not structural at all. This is not adding gussets or trusses to your axle or whatever like that. All we're doing is just filler right here, so that way our brake pad can slide over this nicely and not get hung up and get that weird uneven wear. So I'm going to go and break out the welder, get this all set up. I'm going to put some beads in here, and then we're going to take a flap disc grinder and actually shape it so that it matches this 90-degree corner right here on the top and bottom. Alrighty, so I got that all welded up and ground down. It actually looks pretty darn good. If I take a new brake pad right here, I can move this back and forth without any weird obstructions. That is buttery smooth, and it's going to help with that pad wear on this new set. So now the next thing I'm going to do is prepare for putting our new pads and caliper back on here. You don't want to leave this dry. You want to put some brake grease on this because this is a big area where our pads are going to be moving up against. So I'm going to take some grease here and just put it on pretty liberally, but not too sloppy because you don't want this getting caught on your rotor or anything like that, because then you won't have brakes. Next thing I'll do is I'll take our rotor. If it's new or even used, you still want to clean it up. If you touched it with greasy hands or anything like that, it clears it off with any contaminants. So I'm going to do both sides and clean that up with some brake cleaner. Slide this back on. Now to help this get all assembled and to keep that rotor in place while we put on the caliper, I'm going to take one lug nut, just kind of thread this all the way on there, and that way it's going to hold it to that hub, and so that way it's not going to sit kind of crooked while we're trying to line up the caliper. Alright, so taking a look at the new caliper right here, we basically have everything that's all brand new. We got brand new slide pins and bolts right here, new banjo bolt, and new bleeder screw. So we're all pretty much ready to go. Now you can take these off and just put a little bit more grease in there if you feel like it. I always like doing that just to make sure it has enough in there. Now some grease will wipe off once you take it out of the boot. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot on here, but these just simply pop out. You can leave the boot attached to the caliper. And then I'll just try to get some grease inside this boot and then wipe it on our guide pins. And then press them back in. Any excess grease I'll just wipe off. And when we first install this, we want to set these guide pins back out as far as they go so we get as much clearance as we can fitting this over the rotor. Now the next thing I'm going to do is put our pads in. You want to make sure you have the correct side brake pad. Since we're doing our driver's side right here, we want to make sure that our brake pad that has this little notch in here where it gets locked into the knuckle, we want to make sure that's down, and the side that only has just this one lip right here, that's going to be facing towards the top. Then you also want to make sure you have the correct side caliper too, because you can flip these on accident. You just want to make sure when you line this up that our bleeder screw is on top and not the bottom, so that way we can bleed out air because air rises to the top. So we're going to fit in our piston side pad first. That just snaps in. And then our outside clips in right here. Make sure it lines up with the hole, and then it'll snap into place. There we go. So now I'm going to set this over here, line up our bottoms first, and then slap it in just like that. Now we do have new hardware right here. Looks like they did put a little bit of grease in the threads. With the shank of the bolt, I'm going to put some anti-seize on here because these sometimes seize inside of our guide pins and we don't want that. Now we're going to feed these through the back and then kind of feel around, make sure it lines up with that hole in the knuckle. Now these new bolts for some reason are going to be a 12mm. Not sure why they changed the size, but they are the same bolts overall. So once I get the top one started, go down here, make sure get that bottom one in. Now I should mention that with these brake pads, they do come with little shims in case you do have an excess slop on your knuckles. You can put those in. They just basically sit right where they meet on the axle on this knuckle piece. Mine's not too severe, especially since I just fixed it by filling it in with weld, so I'm not using them here today, but most of your brake pads should come with those as well. So now I'll just evenly tighten up these two bolts and get this caliper secure. Alright guys, so actually I went back and decided that I'm going to add on the shims that came with these new brake pads, and I want to show you guys how you can set this up to get rid of that slop that's in your brake pad against your steering knuckle right here. So the brake pads, they come with a few different sizes of these little shims that are on either end of the brake pad that contacts our knuckle right here. They come with a 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, and 25,000, and basically you just kind of want to work your way up until your pad fits nice and cozy in there. You don't want it to be too tight because you want these to move back and forth, but you want that slop to be eliminated so that pad's not moving around every time you go forward and back up and everything like that and wear on your knuckles. Over here, as you can see, this front pad, I got it dialed in. I just have the two 10,000 shims on either end and very minimal play that it's in here. And I'll show you back here, I have the same setup, two 10,000 shims in the back, and as you can hear, we have a little bit more play. So I'll show you. We're just going to pull off these shims that just simply clip onto these ends right here, and then I'm going to move up to one end onto this 15,000ths right here, snap that guy in, and then we'll just test how this feels. You're going to want to do this when your knuckle is nice and dry, and this is right after I welded and ground it down, so there's no grease or anything like that that's going to dampen any sounds or make up any thicknesses. So now there's just ever so slightly a small amount of gap in there, and I think that's pretty good from not having any shims at all. So if you want to go this route, most brake pads that you get for the Jeep Cherokee, they're going to come with these since they know that these knuckles wear out over time, and then you're going to get those deep grooves. But that's what I'm going to do over here. As you can see on the passenger side, I'm going to go back and redo the driver's side and just add some shims as well. There we go. Now the next step is taking our old brake line and securing it to our new bracket. But like I said earlier, I'm going to be replacing our brake lines. I'm not going to go into detail with that since I got another video covering that, and I'll leave that in the link below so you guys can see me swapping those new brake lines on. But we'll be back in just a second, and then we'll attach our new brake line onto our caliper right here. Alright, so now attaching the brake line to our caliper. If you're reusing the old line or doing the new one, it's going to be the same process. So we got a new banjo bolt right here. We're going to back that out all the way, and then you'll see we'll have two copper crush washers. We're going to leave one of them on. We're going to pass through our brake line and then put the other copper washer on the other side. Now we're going to mount this onto the caliper the exact same way that we took it off. Start the thread into place, and you won't have to worry about orientation because it only pretty much goes in 90-degree increments. Since the brake line has kind of a squared off end on it, it'll correspond with a straight edge on the back of the caliper right here, so this thing won't move on here. So this new banjo bolt happens to be a 14mm. I'm going to snug this guy up. And right now we're basically compressing those new copper crush washers, and that's going to create a nice tight seal. So you don't want to go crazy tight, but just nice and snug on this. About right there is good. Alright, so now we're to the point where we're going to start bleeding the brakes. Once you have that line already hooked up, you can go ahead and release that vice grip that we used to pinch off the line. Since I got brand new lines right here, I have actually all brand new hard lines and everything, so I got a lot of air in the system. Next thing we're going to do is bleed the brakes. If you did one corner at a time, it's okay just to bleed this one, as long as you feel like you didn't get too much air into the rest of the system. If you did both sides, you want to bleed the side that has the longest line away from the master cylinder as possible. I actually did both sides at the same time, so I already bled the passenger side, so I'm over here on the driver's side since it's the closest, and we're going to bleed this. Now the new bleeder screw right here is going to be a 10mm. I don't know why it's metric on the new one, but that's what it is. And what I'm going to do is use the two-person technique on bleeding the brakes. I find that the most useful and the fastest, so I'm just using the old water bottle trick with the hose on it and opening the valve as someone else is depressing the brake. So that's why I'm going to get started right here. I'm going to have them push down on the brake, and then once it builds up pressure, I'm going to open it up, and it should shoot out some air and then some of the bad fluid. And we're going to keep doing that till we get all the air out, and until we get some new fluid too, since this is going to be sort of like a brake fluid flush. Down, release, down, release, down, release. Alright, so that's looking pretty good on this side. Now since I did do both sides, I'm going to go and do a back and forth a couple times until I know there's for sure no air in the system. Now as you're doing this, you want to make sure that the master cylinder is constantly topped off. You don't want to run low on that, otherwise you're going to be doing the entire brake system, since you're going to introduce air if you run that master cylinder low. So make sure that's always topped off, and then I'm going to keep doing this until I have no air in both sides, since I did both sides. But if you just did it this one corner, you should be good to go. Alright, so I got this side all bled, and I went actually back and forth a few different times to get everything all bled, because it still felt a little bit spongy on the pedal. So now I got it to where it was before, so it's nice rock solid, so I have no more air in the system. So we're all pretty much finished up. Went and just snugged down our bleeder screw. That's pretty good there. Then we just got our new little dust cap that goes on there, and that's pretty much it. And this is all wrapped up, ready to go. Alright guys, before this video wraps up, I do want to mention today's video sponsor, and that is by Top Done. We all know winter's right around the corner, and getting stuck on the side of the road in an emergency is not ideal, but Top Done has provided a product that we can take a look at today that might save your butt on the side of the road if you have a dead battery. So what they provided right here today is a small jump starter. Now these are becoming very popular. There's a lot of companies out there that make these, and today we're looking at the one provided by Top Done. Now we're going to do a quick demonstration on starting this Jeep right here and showing all the features inside of this unit right here, what it all has to offer. So I'm going to pop this open, we'll see what's inside, and we'll try to start this Jeep and replicate a dead battery. Alright, so taking a quick look right out of the box, this has a nice hard shell case right here. This is going to be nice to throw in the back of your vehicle and not have to worry about it falling out or getting damaged. So we'll pop this open real quick. And inside we have our main jump starter right here. And this is a capacitor style, so it has capacitors in here that you charge up with a simple USB. And it's provided right here, so that goes into a normal USB outlet. You can charge it inside your house, you can charge it on the go in your vehicle as well, so it's always topped off. And then on here on the sides, you have your charging port on one side. You got our main port right here for plugging in our cables that go to our battery. And we got a couple of charging USB ports right there. We also have a light on the end here, so it gives you a quick little flashlight and SOS signal as well. They also do come with instructions on how to use this, but it's fairly simple, as it does have just one button on top right there. Then we also have our alligator clamps right here, which are going to go on our battery post to jump start it, and this simply just plugs into the top over here. So once I do that, it looks like we got full power. I already went ahead and charged this. It did come around 50 or 75% battery. When it got mailed to me, you want to go ahead and charge this up all the way before you start using it. Also on this adapter, it does have a boost button, so if you have a completely dead battery, this is going to provide all the juice to it and start your vehicle up. So I'm going to pop the hood and get our battery disconnected and put this on our wire leads going into the vehicle, and we're going to see if this thing starts up the Jeep. Alright, so I got our battery cables off of the battery and just kind of put a rag here to kind of isolate it. So this kind of automatically turns on once you plug in your cables right here. So we're going to hook this up onto here. So now we're going to go and start this up. I'm going to click the boost button on here, and my fuel pump is going bad again, so the check valve is shot in it, so I usually have to prime this a couple times to start it up anyway, so we'll do that. Click the boost button. Alright, as you saw, that started up actually pretty darn good. That was pretty much what the battery could do, if not better. I definitely noticed with priming, just the tone of the fuel pump was a lot higher too than what a normal battery would put out. So that is pretty cool right there. And on here, it even says full charge still. So you probably get a few starts out of this. That wasn't a whole lot of cranking either. So this is definitely something I'm going to keep in my vehicle over the winter time. Alright guys, there you have it. I'm pretty surprised how fast this was able to start my Jeep right here. This wasn't really comparing all the vehicles I could really start with. Obviously, if you have a big 8-liter diesel or something like that, it might not work, but if for everyday people with their modern cars and everything like that, this is a straight 6 4.0, and it cranked it up faster than what the battery could. So for your average person, this is going to work pretty well. So if you guys want to take a look and purchase one for yourself, or just look and see if that's the right fit for you, I'll leave that link down below so you guys can check that out as well. I want to thank Top Done for sending this out, and this is definitely going to be something I'm going to keep in my vehicle for over the winter. So let's get back to the video. Alright guys, and just like that, we're all finished up. The front brakes on this thing are all nice and new and freshened up, so we shouldn't have any issues coming from the front for a long time. Now you guys want to make sure to stay tuned because we're going to be doing a disc brake conversion on the rear of this Jeep Cherokee right here. I've done it on my last Jeep in the past with great results, so we're going to do it on this Jeep here soon. So you guys want to stay tuned for that. Overall, I'll leave all the parts I used in this video in the link in the description below. If you guys have any questions or comments, make sure to post them below. If you want to help support the channel, check out the Etsy Out Jeeping store. I'll leave that in the link down below as well. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.